I've got an important question, right? Most people will pay for their kids like undergraduate education, hoping that that will launch them into the world. But would you pay for your kids' graduate school education if you thought that that might mean they won't wind up living in your basement?
I mean, I definitely don't want them living in my basement, but I also am not sure that I want to invest my money in their grad education, although the allure of getting them out of my basement is very enticing. But did you know that nearly 12% of young adults aged 25 to 34 with doctoral or postgraduate degrees are actually still living with their parents? So there's not even a guarantee.
That's a crazy statistic and slightly terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I never lived in my parents' basement, so that's a good thing.
Oh, shoot, I did.
Oh, well, not me. I never moved back after college, and they didn't pay for my master's or doctorate. So maybe part of it is you have to pay for it yourself to really launch you.
There's got to be a connection to AI here somehow, right?
Well, it's a little bit of a stretch here, Matt, but there's like a recent study from Google DeepMind, and the more they invest to reduce hallucinations in language models, the better things seem to be going. So there's a study called Understanding Hallucination Rates in Language Models, Insights from Training on Knowledge Graphs and Their Detectability Challenges, which highlights the increasing cost and complexity of reducing these errors as model sizes and training durations expand. So to get to these lower hallucination rates requires like larger models, and as well as longer training runs, which means that there's a lot of demand for computational resources.
You know, no one reads a paper title on artificial intelligence like you do.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're right. So, bigger models, longer training runs, more expensive in order to reduce. So just like the kid in the basement, they're spending more money in order to have a better outcome. And the challenge, though, is the time, right? This thing is a horse race now. You've got Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, and they're all trying to release the next model out ahead of their competitors, and their competitors go up on this thing called the Limpsys chatbot arena leaderboard.
Ooh, I want to be on the leaderboard.
Right. And so they will want to cut off a training run, right? Not have the AI training go on for too long because they have to release so they don't get beat out. So it's a little bit counterintuitive at that level. One interesting thing I've noticed in the last few weeks is that Elon, this dude is coming on strong on the Limpsys Arena leaderboard. So this is, we just talked about it a couple weeks ago with the crazy Grok 2 image generator, right? And his systems are getting better, faster. They just released over the holiday weekend here in the United States over Labor Day weekend, this thing called Colossus, which is, do you like that name?
I think it's a little over the top, but it doesn't surprise me.
Do you think a female CEO would not have named it Colossus?
Probably not.
Right. So yeah, Colossus was launched over the holiday weekend. They built this thing in 122 days, and it is basically the largest cluster of these things called H100s, which are the NVIDIA chips that run all of the artificial intelligence. I remember when we were talking about our beloved Hey Pi, which by the way is like not, sometimes I'm just getting this thing that says, sorry, something went wrong. We're not around. So
not good.
The inevitable passing is coming. All right. So I think we talked about Pi being trained on like 20,000 maybe of these H100s. So X, formerly Twitter, has Grok, and this has been trained on 100,000 GPUs. And now they're talking about doubling that to 200,000 H100s. So they've already moved up the leaderboard. They already on just 15,000 of these H100s, basically head-to-head with ChatGPT. And so the horse race becomes way more interesting and way more complicated.
Go Elon, sort of, I guess. Well, unlike AI, at least with kids, you can always threaten to turn their old rooms into a home gym if they don't get their act together. So I'm hoping that my kids won't be living in my basement in a few years.
I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is ChatEDU, a podcast about AI in K-12 education. In today's episode, From Solo to System, Elevating AI Across Our Schools, we'll explore why schools need to move beyond focusing just on teacher AI professional learning in order to realize the full potential and benefits of generative AI.
First, in the news, Matt and I will talk about how teachers can use AI to create stunning images with words on or around the images. I know that does not sound like a big breakthrough, but wait till we talk about it because it is.
Then Liz will unpack a new study about executive function in the use of AI.
And then we'll go beneath the surface as we examine what happens when schools, districts, and all organizations move beyond thinking about upskilling the people, teachers in this case, and unpack all the benefits of focusing on systems like curriculum, assessment, administration, and more. And then we'll end with another short stack chat back.
All right, so Liz, let's talk more about images, right? So Ideogram, which we've discussed a little bit now, has Ideogram 2.0, which is really a kind of groundbreaking AI tool that addresses this long-standing challenge, as you said in the intro, of rendering accurate text, which is actually a problem that has, for all the amazing stuff AI can do, it's very hard to get a really compelling image next to a bunch of words that are spelled and displayed accurately.
Yeah, I have had this problem. I have been doing image generation with AI for a while, and even when you put in the very specific words you want there, it spells them wrong. It adds characters that are definitely not letters. It's really strange. But this is also the third time in 4 weeks that we're talking about this visual topic. We talked about Runway Gen 3's video creation a couple of weeks ago. Then we talked about Grok's image feature, and now we're talking about Ideogram. So this is a fun topic because you are all about AI going beyond the text.
Yeah, that does seem to be a thing I talk about. So are you saying that we should not talk so much on an audio podcast about all these visually stimulating topics on AI?
I mean, we don't seem to be getting complaints, so we must be doing it at least decently.
And you can email us at ChatEDU. Wait, what's the address? You can email us at chatedu@edadvance.org. That's edadvance.org.
Exactly.
I feel like we should do an advertisement for the agency. So yes, with Ideogram 2, you have the ability to generate images also in a bunch of styles like realistic or 3D or design or even anime, which my kids love, my 20-plus-year-old kids. And additionally, you can do the text rendering in specific ways that, where it goes on the image. You can decide where it's placed, how it's structured, and you can easily manipulate those elements, which is kind of cool.
The diversity of styles is really fun. And, there's lots of different ways to use this in educational contexts. So you can use realistic or cartoonish styles, but you can also talk about artistic interpretations like sketches or watercolors, depending on the needs of the lesson and what you're talking about. And these features can help educators produce visually engaging learning material really quickly, which will reduce the time spent on editing and making it easier to adapt. When we were at a school a few weeks ago, when I was working with some elementary teachers, they wanted to make some images with phonic sounds, so like a P for pirate. And when we first generated the image, it gave us actually 4 options, and 2 of them were great. They had the letter P, lots of images that all started with P, so we were super happy with them. Then one had just images and no letter on it. And then the last one had all images that started with P, but multiple letters. Like it had a P in a circle and an A in a circle and a T in a circle. And we were like, where did those come from? But we did get 1 or 2 that were useful.
And this is in Ideogram 2.0, right?
This was in Ideogram, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to predict, because just in a second we're going to try a couple out, and I've been doing a little bit more testing. We've referenced this phrase before. Professor Ethan Mollick of Wharton.
Which is at Penn.
I know.
My alma mater.
So anyhow, Ethan Mollick talks about this thing called the jagged frontier of AI, where sometimes AI crushes it and sometimes it just blows. And it's interesting in Ideogram because it does both. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to do a live test and see how it goes, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to nail it sometimes, but it's not going to get it every time. One of the interesting things about image generation also is just the prompting, right? So you'll notice that many of the image generators, the AI image generators, maybe, what's built inside, for instance, Gemini, they just re-released their image tool. after some controversy about bias and display, but also the image generation that happens right inside ChatGPT, which is using the DALL-E model, or like we've used Adobe Firefly a lot.
Yeah.
So when you put in a prompt, sometimes they'll rewrite that prompt in interesting ways. And I've really been enjoying actually using ChatGPT to come up with a prompt so that it's really stylized. So I'm just not that super creative. So I'll say something like, I'll go to ChatGPT and say, please create a prompt for an image about a story starter, right, for young kids with an old tree and an image that reads, "Who lives inside?"
Oh.
Are you so curious?
I am.
Right. So I basically said to ChatGPT, please write this image prompt. And here's what it gives me. An ancient towering tree with thick gnarled trunk and sprawling roots sits in the middle of a dense mythical forest. The tree's bark is deeply grooved, and its enormous branches twist and curl in the sky, covered in moss and vines. A faint warm light glows from the small hollow at the base of the tree, suggesting a hidden entrance, Liz.
Oh, I mean, I was just thinking like an owl, but apparently there's a whole world in there.
Oh, with the who lives inside. That would be great. All right, so the atmosphere is enriching with soft rays of sunlight filtering through the dense canopy above, casting a magical glow. In bold, whimsical letters across the top, the image reads, "Who lives inside?"
All right. Well,
I mean, how great is that? All I said is, please create a prompt for an image about a story starter for first graders with an old tree and an image, "Who lives inside?"
that's very impressive.
Right? Well, I didn't do it, but so I'm going to take that whole little prompt. I bop on over to Ideogram 2.0. So I'm now using two AI tools side by side, right? Ideogram gives me the following. All right, for the listeners, I am now taking my laptop and moving it over so Dr. Rade can see it. And we have beautiful, I mean, we look at these, well, maybe we'll drop one or two into the show notes. So everything that image description gave us, beautiful. The tree, the grooves in the bark, right? What do you see there, Liz? Don't talk about the text, but just the tree part. I mean, I'll give you multiple versions here.
Yeah, it looks like a really mythical, like forest that there's definitely something interesting going on inside that tree. There's like a little light in the bottom where the root system is that like fairies or something lives in there. It's not just my idea. I was like, owls live in trees, squirrels live in trees.
You and I share our dearth of creative power here.
Yeah.
All right, now, Liz, if listeners, listen in. If you would read for us, because remember the prompt said in like whimsical, fantastic font, list the prompt, "Who lives inside?" So that like a first grader can look at that and go, "Oh, Ms. Rade, I think it's a
Doctor.
Oh, Dr. Rade, are you really a doctor? Do you have an MD on your license plate?"
Nope.
Okay. So, Liz, please read for us the characters here.
Oh, that one says, "Who levis in gep?"
Oh, okay. Let's read the next one.
Who leves ingdi?
Huh. And we're in Ideogram 2.0 here, right?
Who lives ingdi?
Yeah. And this last one's correct, right?
Yeah, that one says, "Who lives inside?"
Okay, so it's kind of like what you experienced when you were with that wonderful group of teachers that we should say was at Region 16.
Correct.
All right, moving on. So this is interesting, right? Our whole headline was Ideogram crushes it, but we're not there yet.
No, I mean, it crushed the images, but the text still not great in most of those images.
Yeah, and it's really on any given day, right? That's what's interesting. I've had days where that nails it every single time, but like for some truth in advertising here, we should be clear that Ideogram 2.0 is making good progress, and I think it's cool to learn how to use a different tool like a ChatGPT or a Claude to write a beautiful image prompt, but we still have to have a little patience here. But better than searching for it on Google image search. I always come back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how easy is it to then edit that image? Like, how many skills do you need? I loved one of those trees. How difficult is it for me who doesn't have a lot of skills in digital media to kind of correct that?
It's like a 3 out of 10, a 4 out of 10. I mean, it's not totally simple. That is one of the cool things about Ideogram 2.0 is that there is more control and power and editability, but it's not totally simple. Like ultimately, right, we want teachers to be able to create images, video, music, compelling text, differentiate text, language translation. Like the systems have to get better. At some level, it goes back to our introduction about the kid living in the basement, right? Like the bigger models, the longer training runs, the more data they gobble up, it seems like the more progress they make, but we're not totally there yet.
Right. I mean, it's definitely a huge improvement from 6 months ago where those were at least all characters that are letters, where 6 months ago it was creating letters that were not letters.
Yeah.
So I definitely see improvement.
Right. That's one of the things about these releases, right? One of the most enjoyable moments in my presentation these days is we used and talked about this thing called Runway Gen 3, right, which is this cool text to video or even image to video output as an AI model. And I think on the podcast we talked about, we took a picture of your dog and Jonathan's dog in Runway Gen 2 and said the prompt was like 2 dogs going out for a walk. And then as we shared here, and I love just resharing because it helps me process the trauma, a third dog came out of the butt of one of your guys' dogs.
Yeah. It didn't come out of Aloe's butt. It came out of Vicky's butt. Let's just be clear. It was all Jonathan's dog.
All right. But in Runway Gen 3, that prompt is beautiful. Like I share that in every presentation. The dogs are out running on the grassy plains and there's no third dog coming out of the butt of any other dog. So yeah, models get better.
Yeah.
It's all about the butts. All right, let's come back to Ideogram 2.0, Liz. So yes, we recognize that it needs to get better, right? And it will. But so as we think through this, as teachers kind of prepare to begin using these tools, what do you see as applications? Like what would a middle school teacher or an elementary school teacher do with this?
In elementary school, there's tons of applications. I talked about the first one of just making images for phonics, and that's simple and easy to do. But creating interactive and visually appealing storybooks or flashcards is really a great way to use it. And being able to generate personalized storybooks where images and texts are perfectly aligned to a student's interest, and helps young students connect words with the visuals is so much easier to do with an application like this.
Yeah, certainly I think for special education, but really for all learners, where you can have clear, precise visuals combined with text when it hits it, right, can generally really support diverse learning needs, making this educational content more accessible for all students. And at the middle school level, I think we could also imagine this science diagrams, creating accurate diagrams for subjects like biology or chemistry where the labels are clearly readable and correctly placed. Although I did try to do one for the solar system, and yeah, it wasn't good. There were multiple Saturns, and Saturn was the sun, and Uranus. Sorry, I just had to correct that. I'm just a 12.
Such a middle school boy.
Right, I never progressed. I think you could see history timelines where you produce, and I did have this work effectively, where you produce timelines that kind of integrate both text and images, allowing students to visualize historical events. And again, I always make the case that we won't go to Google image search that much. If you think of all the time that we've all spent in Google image search or some image tool or Getty Images trying to find just the right thing, we're like 2 or 3 months away from anything we conjure up in our minds relative to our curriculum that we want to combine image and text, both as teachers and also students, is really there. So I think you can see that at the middle school level as well.
Yeah, in high school, there's lots of ways to use it as well. So more sophisticated projects that require like higher level of visual and textual integrations. So, research presentations that can include infographics, as long as we get that text there, which can enhance a student's ability to convey these complex ideas and information. There's a lot of students that are really interested in writing graphic novels and artistic pieces where they can write the story, Ideogram can generate the images, and so that's a really cool way to blend creative writing and visual arts. So there's just a lot of different ways kids are using it.
Yeah, I think you could see it outside of the classroom too.
Oh, a ton.
Right, extracurricular activities. We have to think about citing the images, but in school publications where maintaining a high visual quality is critical. One thing to think about, and we discussed this while we were talking about the image generation tool in Grok 2, is that with these highly realistic images, you can also create deep fakes. Certainly Ideogram is not going to give you the Donald Trump holding Kamala Harris while she's 9 months pregnant, patting her belly.
That's a good thing.
I can't get that out of my head.
I know. I've showed people that image since then. And
that and the dog, this AI thing is causing me some trauma. All right.
But let's keep podcasting about it weekly.
So we can share our trauma with you. All right. But in general, right, when we're working with AI image generators like Ideogram or Adobe Firefly, it's a great opportunity to help students think about deepfakes, the ethical use of AI, and also intellectual property. Like, where did all these things come from? How are we able to create these images, and what have they been trained on? I know Adobe Firefly has really, or Adobe's made the strong point that it is, kind of copyright free, right? It has not violated the intellectual property rights of photographers or artists.
No, I think you make a great point about the need for responsible use of AI in education and making sure that students are aware of both the great potential these tools have and the risks of these technologies.
With AI comes great opportunity and great responsibility, Liz.
Yeah, that's an original quote from you, huh? Never heard that one before.
All right, let's shift gears here for a second because this is so much fun. Right now, we're talking about image generation, but one thing we've talked a lot about is AI vision. And Liz has, by the way, no idea we're about to talk about this, so this is going to be entertaining because it's all going to be about her Facebook account.
Oh, geez.
You excited?
I don't know. I'm nervous.
I have the record button, so there's not much you can do. I took a week's vacation, Liz, in the middle of August, and then I came back. So in between the last 3 weeks of August, I think I'm not bragging, it's just more of a durability race, but I did something like 15 presentations, I think, and trainings and workshops, and not just me going blah, 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 like real meaningful, I hope, interactive conversations with either district leadership teams or convocation, professional development, back to school, all that kind of stuff. And as you know, one thing I always do is ask people to talk about ways that they might have used AI, in this case, over the summer. And I heard so many fun things, just like all this stuff. But my favorites were all about AI vision, right? I had a woman who had like a family reunion, and her whole family is Polish, but also there's some German. And she took these documents that her family had from, I don't know, like the 1700s that were uncovered in an old family estate or home. She used AI vision to translate them all. I mean, I don't think anyone can.
That's really cool.
Right. No one can speak to the fidelity, but, them created a book around this. It was really neat. Another woman did what's this thing where you do like a color analysis of you're like a warm summer? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, my mother-in-law does this.
What is it?
I wear zero makeup ever, so I'm not the right person to talk about this, but I think looking at your skin tones and how what skin colors come out the most, it's a way to match your makeup to your natural skin colors.
Huh. All right. Well, I had a woman in a district share that she had done this with AI vision, right? She just took a picture of herself, uploaded it to ChatGPT, asked it to do a color analysis or whatever this thing is. It told her that she was a warm summer. And, I always ask teachers when we're doing this share out, did it save you time? Or did it help you do something for kids, if we're looking from a curricular perspective, that you simply haven't been able to do before or has been hard, right? And this introduced a whole new thing, which is, did it save you money? It has nothing to do with teaching and learning, but it's a great application of AI vision. And she said, yeah, in her town, doing one of these color analysis is $350 an hour, right?
Wow.
So I was like, dude, you should just put out a shingle and say, free color analysis. Let me take a picture. I'll be right back, right? Goes and talks to ChatGPT, gets the output. So, but the most enjoyable one, which I haven't done yet and I've been saving for you, is apparently there's a whole meme viral trend going on where you take a bunch of pictures of your social media feed and then you upload them to any AI vision tool. We tend to use ChatGPT or Claude, and then you ask it to roast your social media feed.
Oh my goodness.
Are you excited and are you ready?
No and no, but sort of yes.
Okay, awesome. Liz is always game. All right, so I'm going to hit the pause button. We're going to do a bunch of screenshots from Liz's Facebook feed, which she was very active, all the knitting, and then we're going to ask ChatGPT to roast it.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, please stand by. All right, so Liz, we're back. Tell us a little bit about what you uploaded to the old ChatGPT.
All right. So I went to my Facebook and looked at my profile and some of my most recent posts. So the most recent thing I posted was August 23rd, and I was doing a LEAP kickoff, which is the Learner Engagement and Attendance Program at the Connecticut State Department of Ed. So there's me doing some LEAP work. Then I posted something about our panel picker for South by Southwest. And then, of course, it moves into the crafting. So I have some quilting with my dog's face on it, a picture of me doing stained glass with my family, then some more crafting from my week at Fiber Arts Camp. And then we move a little way away from the crafting, and there's a picture of me with my daughters, and a picture of me in Cleveland with my girls and my husband because we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then I ended with some pictures in Prague because that was the end of our tour of Europe.
Okay. And you put in a prompt. Was it pretty simple? You just said, like, roast me?
My prompt said exactly, I am going to give you a bunch of images from my Facebook feed. After I share them, roast me and my feed.
Okay. And you've gotten the result, and you texted it over to me.
And it's very funny.
Okay. Shall we?
Wow, where do I even begin? Your Facebook feed is like a highlight reel of, I do things, but don't worry, I also know how to relax. It's almost like you sat down one day and thought, how can I make my life look like a perfect balance of productivity and fun while subtly reminding people I'm cooler than they are? Should we break it down? That's what.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Let's break it down.
So then it breaks it down. It says, stained glass enthusiast. Ah, yes, because nothing screams, I'm artsy and better at life than you, like a picture of you holding up your stained glass creation. We get it. You're crafty. But honestly, who even has time for stained glass these days? Are you making windows for a cathedral on the side? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Of course, you just had to stop by Cleveland's iconic spot. Was it a quick stop, or did you perform a solo concert that we're not aware of? And those poses? Classic. I'm casually cool and also in a band you've never heard of.
Dude, this thing is rough.
The busy professional. Between LEAP gatherings and South by Southwest EDU panel picker, you're not just part of the educational world, you're running it. And that collage, it's like you're trying to make everyone feel guilty for not changing the world today. The Quilting Chronicles. Look, we all know that quilting is the gateway to grandma status, but you've somehow made it look like the trendiest activity ever. Next thing we know, you'll be knitting scarves on the subway while teaching a masterclass in how to become amazing at everything.
That's actually quite possible.
It is. The family person. Oh, you included a picture with family and friends. It's almost like you're saying, I'm not just successful, artistic, and well-traveled. I'm also deeply connected to my roots. We get it. You're the whole package.
This is why I don't put anything on social media.
The podcaster extraordinaire.
Oh.
Promoting your podcast? Well, I guess someone has to, but this is peak multitasking. You're giving TED Talks, quilting, and now you're a podcast star too. Is there anything you can't do?
It knows you so well.
It's pretty accurate.
Okay.
It says, in conclusion, your feed is basically a masterclass in humble bragging. You've got the perfect mix of I'm successful, I'm creative, I care about the world, and I'm also a relatable human being who does cool stuff in my free time. Kudos to you for making the rest of us feel like we need to get our lives together.
I can totally see why this has become a viral trend.
This is so funny and so on point. I could hear my brother saying all of these things. I could hear my cousin Patrick saying all of these things about me. It is exactly what any of those people who know me and love me and are always happy to roast me would say.
All right. So for those of you who are on the edge of your seat waiting for a reason to use AI vision, now's your chance if you've got a bunch of social media. You could, by the way, use this in the prompt will change anything, right? So the prompt could have said, help me think about how I can better let's say this is your LinkedIn. Help me think of how I can better communicate to colleagues, how I can be helpful to support my, their work and our network together, right? We just happen to use this roast prompt. So if you're waiting for the opportunity to use AI vision, this may be it. And just, again, strategically or as a process, all you're doing is taking some screen grabs, right? And then uploading those to either ChatGPT, the free version has a little paperclip. You can attach the image files, or Claude. I'd love to see how Claude roasted you. It'd be even more creative, right? And then it will use vision to make an analysis of these things. In this case, create this hysterical response. I can't decide if my favorite is the quilting one or the podcasting one. I mean, this is really all just a lot of fun.
This was great. I was a little nervous, but it has been very funny, and not too mean.
Thanks for playing along, Dr.
No
Rabbi.
problem. That was fun.
All right, let's move on to another story. What you got?
All right. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about executive functioning. And so executive...
You're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about executive functioning after this roast?
Well, yes, it is a little bit.
Shift away.
Okay. So, Matt, do you know a lot about executive functioning?
Only that I tell my kids that they don't have enough of it.
Yeah. Well, executive functioning is something I do have actually a little bit of expertise on because...
Oh, really? Should you put it in your social media feed?
Yes, so that I can be roasted some more. So executive functioning is something that became very important to me when I was teaching at a boarding school where lots of kids had both language-based learning disabilities and lots of students had ADHD or were somewhere on the autism spectrum. And executive functioning is one of these things that is so important for life. It is the ability to organize and initiate tasks and focus on what you're doing at hand. So often executive functioning is compared to like the conductor of an orchestra because the conductor tells you when to start playing, when to stop playing, maybe make this part louder, bring the violins out, tone back the trumpets, bring the trumpets out, tone back the basses, whatever it is. And it's that conductor that brings everything together in an orchestra, even though there's lots of pieces. So executive functioning is the ability for your brain to figure out what to focus on, where to start, how to organize and prioritize. And it is not something you are born with. It's something that you have to learn. And we start scaffolding this in school and at home with little kids, like helping them learn how to clean up, right? Pick up the biggest toys first because they go in the bottom of the barrel. Put the little toys into the littler boxes. We started with helping kids follow multi-step directions. Go to your room, get your blue shirt, your red sneakers, and bring them downstairs. That's multiple tasks they have
for
to
me,
do.
that was just go to your room.
Well,
You didn't have that experience.
No,
Yeah,
I was
always good.
humble bragging. So executive functioning is also very hard to learn or to master when, not that anybody ever masters executive functioning, but ADHD complicates all of this and it makes it much more difficult. So one of the things that is really difficult for students with ADHD is task initiation, prioritization, and in general, just organizing their life and figuring out how to do things. And so there's all kinds of strategies that we use as humans to make things better, right? We might use a plan book. We use a Google Calendar. We use checklists. We learn to prioritize. But for a student staring at the blank screen or looking at a huge room that is a mess and not knowing how do I even start to clean, ChatGPT and large language models actually can be really helpful for these kids. And so there was just a recent study that shows that students who struggle more with executive functioning perceived generative AI as significantly more useful for schoolwork than their peers. And one of the reasons is that they think that students derive greater productivity improvements than their classmates because their classmates might already have these skills. And so I think a lot about, some of my former students, perhaps maybe even my children, who that blank page is terrifying. I don't know. I have to write an essay. I don't even know where to start. And so we've talked a lot about that blank page and ChatGPT being a great way to give some ideas and to start brainstorming. But what if it was also a way to say, I need to get these 5 things done today. Can you help me prioritize?
Gotcha. So the prompt is really about helping them improve, or it's like an assist for their executive functioning.
Exactly. And I think it's a really interesting way to think about using ChatGPT for kids with those executive functioning issues. Now, it means that the student needs to be self-aware enough to use the prompts. I mean, I can't tell you how many plan books my daughter has had and lost because in order for a plan book to be effective, you actually have to write in it and then you have to actually look at it and then you actually have to do what's in it. But if you have this tool in your pocket and you can say I have 4 hours, these are the 3 things I need to complete. Can you help me break it into smaller pieces? Because sometimes that when you just send a kid to their room and say, clean your room, they have no idea where to start.
Right.
Do I make my bed first? Do I clean the clothes up off the floor? Do I put the makeup away? Like, how do I even start? And it overwhelms them. So this is a really interesting way to use ChatGPT or other large language models to help organize and initiate tasks and get stuff done.
Okay, cool. So we'll put the study into the show notes, but it sounds like they've basically had a bunch of kids that fit this profile and then explored how they actually use ChatGPT to help support their needs in this way. Is that roughly it?
They didn't do too much deep diving, but they did find that students that struggle with executive functioning did find generative AI to be significantly more useful. And so now a lot of this is conjecture as to why they found it more useful, but I think it's a really interesting further area for study because executive functioning is really interesting to me and so important in school success because we know tons of examples of kids that are really, really smart but get not great grades because they can't remember to turn in the homework, right?
Yep, I love it. It makes sense. I know for adult situations and in leadership prompting, we often will do things that feel kind of roughly like this. I've got these 10 things I'm working on. Help me prioritize. Or, here are my goals for the year. What else should I be working on, right? It seems like it's got that kind of, again, that sort of augmentation or second brain or assist. I like it. We did a really fun episode quite a while ago now called What a Character, about character AI and all the bizarre characters and interesting characters. You talked to Jim from The Office. You talked to Cheese, which was fascinating. I talked to like Sheila, the anime devil hunter or something like that. But it'd be fun if there was almost like an executive functioning coach, right? All these characters are pre-trained with their model to embody the kinds of things that you would want. So it's like, here's my executive functioning coach. It's a character and I'm going to tell it what I got to do and it's going to help me think through it.
Yeah, which would be a whole lot cheaper than actually hiring executive functioning coaches because they exist and they're out there but it's a lot of money. But if you could get the same kind of thing, it would be great.
Is this your personal war on executive functioning coaches?
No, I think they're great. I wanted to be an executive functioning coach, but I just know that it's not accessible to all students.
Yeah, ChatEDU is gunning for executive functioning coaches and the color analysis people for the makeup.
Yeah, great. They're going to come after us at ChatEDU at edadvance.org.
All righty. Well, it'd be fun to get some email to that account. So if it's them, so be it.
All right. And now it's time to go beneath the surface with a topic about transforming schools and organizations through generative AI.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about teachers and professional learning and upskilling teachers. We've referenced the Microsoft Work Trends report that suggests that 75% of knowledge workers are using AI in some meaningful way, and that they're very often smuggling it in to their organization because the organization may not sanction their use, right? So very much focused on teachers developing skills to use these tools, but less so on how the school or district or organization actually take advantage of them. Liz, we're going to talk about a news story that came out from McKinsey. McKinsey is the big consulting company. They do a lot of different reports and studies, but this one is called Gen AI's Next Inflection Point: From Employee Experimentation to Organizational Transformation. I just think about Magic School. And again, I have this like slight love-hate thing with Magic School, but think of all the great ways that teachers are using Magic School, but they're somewhat disparate, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm writing report card comments, or I'm doing differentiation of text, or I'm doing decodables. Like, they're all awesome. Don't get me wrong, but they're all disparate. They're all individualized. And at some level, to really take advantage of AI, we have to move from individual solo use cases to more cohesive, systemic, strategic uses of AI.
Oh, so you're going after the Magic School people.
I'm not. Although a lot of folks are wearing Magic School shirts at school now, which is really interesting. They're like Magic School ambassadors. So no, I have noted there are 4+ million teachers now on Magic School, and the number one output are worksheets, right?
That's depressing.
Yeah, Liz is drinking a sugary drink and shaking her head at the same time. But
it's
no,
my favorite beverage.
Yeah,
raspberry peach Snapple. Okay. You can only find it in certain stores.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to be careful here. I'm absolutely, because you could do all those disparate things in ChatGPT as well, right? It's a lens for me to think about all the awesome ways that teachers are using them. But we want to propose that schools and organizations and districts need to think about how do they use them systemically for curriculum renewal. How can you use generative AI to analyze and update curriculum, assuring that curriculum meet all the educational standards, which has got a great ability to do. Walmart just ran like 50 million assets in their catalogs and had AI do an analysis of different pieces that they want to see better aligned. And it did a beautiful job and cleaned up a whole bunch of data in those systems. We've talked a little bit about back office efficiency. How can AI automate some tasks, work eventually on scheduling, though we're not there yet, budgeting, communication, and certainly something we've been working a lot on lately, which are HR and finance chatbots to give accurate information to employees, or even student-facing AI, right? So great. Yes, solo teacher using an AI to give feedback on student writing, custom trained on that teacher's rubric. Great strategy. But think of the potential of that happening across an entire department or across an entire building. This is not AI outsourcing assessment, but allowing kids to get real-time feedback in addition to their teacher's feedback. So you can do a scan across your own department or your own school or district. Are you working on school attendance? Are you working on science of reading? Are you working on equity? Are you working on teacher growth and evaluation? Are you working on portrait of the graduate? I mean, you're probably doing all these
all
things,
of them.
right? So how can generative AI play a role, not just to upskill staff, but to do something more systemic to get the full potential out of AI?
Yeah, we can look to our friends in higher ed sometimes, and Yale and Arizona State University are doing some of this really cool work. Yale announced that they are investing $150 million to bolster AI-related initiatives over the next 5 years, focusing on everything from infrastructure to faculty recruitment and curriculum development. So they will acquire approximately 450 GPUs, which are graphical processing units, and expand their cloud-based GPU access to support advanced AI research, particularly in data processing and simulations.
Bear in mind, 450 is a good number, right? It's cool because here again, this is a sustained systemic investment in research and AI, but you can compare that to Elon Musk's, what was the name of his new thing?
Colossus?
There you go. Colossus with 200,000 GPUs. Please carry on, Dr. Rade.
Maybe it earns the name Colossus if it's got that much.
The university is going to introduce this thing called the Clarity Platform, which is a secure AI tool for the Yale community, ensuring safe and private usage of generative AI technologies. This is similar to something we've talked a lot about, either wrappers or student-facing AI systems that are controlled and a little bit of a sandbox. But again, right, rather than just freelancing it, each individual professor doing their own thing, they're trying to bring some systems to the organization.
I like that. They're also going to invest in over 20 new faculty positions related to AI, and there's going to be seed grants that will support curriculum reviews to better prepare students for an AI-driven future.
Yeah, so we can look to our higher ed brethren.
All right, so there is a huge potential for generative AI to drive innovation in schools, particularly when launching new initiatives, which schools have to do often as things change rapidly. So AI can help take a project from conception to completion faster and with higher quality by doing a few cool things. One is by supporting ideation. So we know that teachers and school leaders are using this all the time to help brainstorm and refine ideas for new projects. So whether it's developing a playground or creating a strategy for managing cell phones in the classroom, here's the ideation.
Are people working on cell phones in the classroom? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 schools have mentioned
Okay, cool.
it. Yeah. Roadmap and timeline development. So once you have that idea, it can assist in creating the roadmap, timeline, time management plan, identify the necessary materials, resources, and manage the roles and responsibilities. So who's going to do this? And then they can also use it to get feedback. So using the AI as a critical friend. So what kind of feedback on the initiative will you get from parents, from board members, from community members? They could suggest improvements and potential pitfalls before they become problems so that you can kind of cut them off at the pass. And this means that AI can be deeply embedded in the workflow, ensuring that new initiatives not only get off the ground faster, but then achieve better results.
You can go to skills21.org/prompts and go to leadership and look at the Charlie Munger inversion theory if you want to see a really good critical friend prompt. I just feel like I'm now contractually obligated to list that prompt page, and I really have no idea why, quite honestly. It's just become a thing.
Well, all of these things remind me so much of PIP and Capstone, right? Like that's exactly how we're having students use it. Start with ideation, have it help you make a timeline and a time management plan, serve as a critical friend with your pros and cons, and help you get from idea to finished project.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to even explore this year as students are working on physical prototypes for their projects, the ability to take a picture and use AI vision to give feedback on the prototypes compared to the social media roast.
It's all great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think other ways that we'll see this happening, certainly there's the idea, right, Liz, of being able to upskill teachers and school leaders.
Generative AI can help identify skills gaps among staff and create targeted training programs to close those gaps so that educators are equipped to integrate AI tools into their teaching practice. And so this is really important as we are expecting teachers to have continuous learning and adapting to new technology in education. They are always constantly upskilling, reskilling, learning all these new technologies. It's not easy on top of everything else they have to do. So if generative AI can help and make it efficient and effective, that's a great use of time.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it is part of a systems effort, right? So again, great opportunities for teachers to use AI in all sorts of ways for personal productivity and for curriculum integration. But here, the idea is that this is a human talent development. You're doing this professional development strategically, kind of aligned to other efforts. So if you, again, want to help work on how students are using AI to get feedback on writing, then you would make a systemic investment in that, maybe with a personalized bot, and then make sure that all the teachers are trained on that. So it's this combination of human potential plus the organization strategically using AI. And there's stuff that needs to be in place to do that, right? It doesn't just happen automatically. There has to be an infrastructure in place. There has to be the technology infrastructure. There needs to be, generally we find there's leadership that's aligned with a planning team. Maybe there's a point person like a director of AI strategy, guidelines. I mean, it's kind of all these pieces that come into place in order to make sure that the individual skill development's happening alongside these organizational investments in curriculum or productivity, or as you really nicely described, new initiatives. And then there's certainly the need to have generative AI systems evaluated, right? How much progress are we making? So maybe we were building the playground, maybe we're using cell phones, maybe we're doing a whole set of strategic investments. What role is AI playing in that? And we have this here at EdAdvance, right?
Yeah, we have a strategic team, the AI strategy team, that meets about every other week, every third week, to talk about how we are using AI, how we can encourage our colleagues to use AI, and the role AI can play in each of our different departments. We have 24 different departments at EdAdvance, and we do a wide variety of things. It's really important that not only is EdAdvance walking the walk and talking the talk with this team, but our leadership is totally bought in and is modeling this for us all the time. We are part of the leadership team, not the executive leadership team, but we are talking to people all the time about how to use it. And because our executive leadership is so encouraging and so open to ways to use it, it makes it really easy to find different ways to implement it in the organization.
Yeah. We start, as the director of AI strategy myself, we're starting actually next week. I think we're doing this on the same days that we do our podcasting, because you and I are both reliably in the office. But we're starting to meet with all the department heads along with our assistant executive directors, so myself, the department heads, and every department has a goal this year on how they will strategically leverage AI in part of their work. And we're there to support them. And our executive director is there to kind of guide that entire effort. And if you want to hear more from him, right, you can go back one episode to episode 25. I think the title was A Talk with the Boss.
I love it.
Yeah, and actually I've gotten a lot of nice feedback from folks on that interview, because Jonathan does a great job both thinking about AI as a leadership lever and how, as the executive director of the organization, he's leading on it, but also just some really good deep thinking about curriculum and assessment and strategy and time. So don't miss that one, A Talk with the Boss. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this up. We certainly have to do our
short stack chat back.
right, Liz. So for our short stack chat back, we're going to ask G.K. Chesterton. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea. Never heard of him.
Believe it or not, I had like a half an hour conversation with Pi about a week ago about this guy, so I'll say more. But anyhow, we're going to ask him in his sort of inimitable style to analyze our analogy about parents investing in their kids' education so they don't live in their basement with doing longer training runs and spending more money by AI companies to reduce hallucinations. All right, so we're going to ask him to do that in 3 sentences, but he's known for this thing called Chesterton's fence. Ever heard of that?
Never.
So it's this really interesting, fun kind of way of thinking about strategy. And it basically comes down to the idea of before you remove a fence, you better think through why the fence was there in the first place and what might be the first, second, and third order effects of removing that fence, right? So I've been thinking about this and I'm preparing to sort of do some new talking and some new slides and some new thinking on this because go back to the Google Gemini ad, right, where the dad says, hey, Gemini, write a letter for my daughter, right? So we aren't actively trying to remove writing from the curriculum, but we are in some cases, or what you just described, perfect example, staring at a blank screen, right? AI is creating a condition where we won't stare at a blank screen anymore if we remember to use the AI. So we are removing the fence of the tyranny of the blank screen. And so Chesterton would say, okay, better check out why that fence was there in the first place. Productive struggle, cognitive load, creativity, right? So before you move said fence, you better think about what are the first, second, and third order effects. Now, I don't know that we can stop removing the fence. I don't know that anybody's going to stare at a blank screen, but I think Chesterton may give us a lens to think about the knock-on effects of that.
All right.
Like it?
I like it.
All right, GK, let us see what you got.
In the curious labyrinth of progress, we encounter a fence. On one side, the basement-dwelling progeny. On the other, the hallucinating machines. Parents and tech titans alike, in their haste to reform, tear down this barrier with floods of money, be it for graduate degrees or gargantuan GPU clusters, forgetting that perhaps this fence of imperfection serves a purpose we've yet to fathom. Yet in this paradoxical pageant, we discover that neither gold nor gigabytes can guarantee the exodus of flesh or fantasy from their respective dungeons, leaving us to ponder whether we've understood the fence before demolishing it.
Wow, that was interesting.
It was, Dr. Ade. Well, as always, thanks so much for listening to ChatEDU. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review. We're up over 500 followers, which is awesome. We'd love to get to 1,000 before we come on a year anniversary, so we have a little bit of time. But we really deeply and sincerely appreciate the feedback, the fact that so many folks are enjoying the podcast. We'll keep cranking them out, so rate, review,
subscribe.
Yep, that too, right? So we can get to 1,000. And you can always email us at
ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org.
And also feel free to go to skills21.org/AI. You can click the little contact button if you prefer to fill out a form because that feels, more accessible than sending an email. That's there for you as well. All right, Liz, let's roll the credits.
ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Ahmed Malik, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson. Gary is the ChatEDU Design and Outreach Ginsu Knife, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. Finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
See you next time.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, the regional nonprofit educational service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. On behalf of Matt and Liz and our entire agency, I want to thank you for listening to our ChatEDU podcast. Finally, keep an eye out this fall for our expanding AI community of practice and new AI micro-credentials for teachers and educational leaders. Take care And thanks again, and tell your friends about ChatEDU.